on page Kufnan Dalet. It's chapter 41. The last page, Omnam. First column, second paragraph. Omnam yesh lahovin od divrei chochma. After all that is explained, this is why the Yam Suf split. Multiple opinions in what merit. Whether it was Avraham Avinu, the Akedah, was it Milah, was it the Amunah we had, whatever, multiple reasons. There's something else you have to understand regarding words of wisdom, and then you'll be able to comprehend and grasp the depths of wisdom. Lahavin od kriyas yamsuf, to understand kriyas yamsuf at a more advanced level. Ki kvar hisbar ki yesh liyisrael mala hasatsura hanivdelis. Verais Gevruras al zeh. He said this multiple times throughout all his writings. What is the difference between Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, and the nations of the world? The nations of the world, not only are they physical in their makeup, their essence, their dimension, their value is purely physical. That they're physical beings who have a soul. But in terms of their significance and their innate value, it's unrelated to possessing a soul. The soul is only to allow them to make choices. But in terms of their representation in existence, they are not spiritual beings. Klal Yisrael, although we're physical in our reality, but what is our representation in existence? We're a spiritual nation. We only need the physicality to implement our choices. Because without choice, your existence has no value. So we have physical to establish the conflict, but what are we advancing? We're advancing our essence, which is our spirituality. That is the difference between Klal Yisrael and nations. That's called Tzura Nivdelis. Our profile is something which was removed, which transcends physical existence. The example I always give, the Mishnah tells in Pirkei Avos that there were a number of miracles that took place in the Beis Hamikdash. What was one of them? That when the Jews would gather in the sanctuary, they would actually be pressed body to body. Omdim tzufim. You couldn't be more pressed. But when they would hear the name of Hashem being enunciated by the Kohen Gadol, by the high priest, they would prostrate themselves. They had to prostrate themselves. Was speaking that they needed 4 cubits. And there was sufficient room. How's it possible? If you would stand outside, you realize the walls wouldn't expand. So how do you reconcile the limited space with the reality of what they were able to do? The answer is, in terms of the physical makeup of the Beis Hamikdash, of the sanctuary, it was physical makeup. But what its dimension? Its dimension is spiritual. If its dimension is spiritual, there's no limitation. How do you reconcile with the physical? The answer is you can't. It's not something we can even relate to. You know, we speak about the speed of light. When a Jew does a mitzvah, it touches upon every aspect of existence instantaneously. There's nothing quick faster than that. How's it possible? You put on your tefillin properly, you put $1 in its tzedakah box, a penny in its tzedakah box. You give a penny to a poor man. It's a positive commandment. Pasuach tiftach es yot chaloni. You've extended your hand to the what? To the poor man. You say the Kiddush Friday night. Whatever you do, instantaneous effect, global, physical, spiritual, every realm of existence immediately is impacted. How does it happen so instantaneously? The answer is, if you deal within the spiritual realm, time is not an issue. There's no limitation. It's instantaneous, all-encompassing. So what is our essence? As in the words of the Maral, this is terminology, Tzura Nivdelis. Tzura means the form which is removed. It's removed from the physicality. It transcends physicality. We're not evaluated based on physical criteria. Therefore, our number means nothing. Why? It happens to be just coincidental with the smallest number in terms of nations of the world. We're infinitesimal compared to the world. The answer is because it's not relevant. Number only makes a difference if you're a physical being. In the physical existence, number means something. But if that's not your significance, that's not your essence, that's not your value, number is irrelevant. Of course, we're not talking about quantification. Quantification is only within the physical. Within the spiritual, it's a whole different quantification. The Rambam writes in Hilchos Tshuva that how do you determine if a person is classified as tzaddik? If the majority of his accomplishments are rov zochios, are meritorious, and if the majority are negative, so then the classification is Rasha, evil. So the Rambam writes, who makes this evaluation? This, what he calls shikul. This evaluation, only the Kel Deus. Only the God, all-knowing, only He's able to make this evaluation. How do you evaluate the significance of a mitzvah? Well, tefillin, you wore it for 3 minutes, therefore what? It's a leather box, you paid so much for it. It has parchments in it. It was written by a sofa, but that's not what it's about. We have no idea what it's about. Havizor b'mitzvah kala b'chamura, the Mishnah says, you should be as careful with a lesser mitzvah as a more extreme mitzvah. Because you don't know the extent of the reward of a mitzvah. It's not possible. It's so unfathomable, even what you seem to be ordinary and simple, it's beyond our grasp. We can't even, and that's an understatement. To that, therefore, Havizor mitzvah kala b'chamura. So he says, if you want to understand not only divrei chokhmah, you will grasp a profoundness of wisdom to understand what the whole idea of Kriyas Yamsuf was beyond. Lefichoch hamitzrim shem hafochim shenimshu lechomer. Where were we? The Egyptian people of all 70 nations are to the extreme of the difference between what we are and what they are. How are they depicted by the Novi? Chamorim. That means of all 70 nations, they have the least relevance to spirituality. They're totally devoid. They're chomer. They're physical. The flesh of donkeys is their flesh. I mean, they're not donkeys, they're human beings. But in terms of the innateness, what is the innate value of a donkey? It's all physical. This people, the Egyptian people, they're all physical. So therefore, there's no common ground between us and the Egyptians. Therefore, initially, we can't coexist. They dominated us. Kasher hamishpad nosein ki achome ikar b'reishiso utchiloso. Anything in the physical, we speak about mental fatigue. We talk wear and tear. When something starts initially in the physical, it's strong, it's intense, it's dense, but over time, it starts withering, wearing down. So it starts strong, and over time, it actually weakens and dissipates and disappears. That is the characteristic of physical. But anything in the spiritual realm is a continuum. So therefore, if the physical eventually dissipates and wears down and becomes almost nil, so what overtakes at the end? The overtaking representation is the spiritual. V'kacho Yisrael moshlim al Mitzrayim. So therefore, what happened after 210 years? When we were ready for the Gula, the 209th year, when the Nisim Gluyim, the revealed miracles began, then the spiritual was overtaking. Egypt was destroyed. The supernatural overwhelmed the natural. So what is that? A human being is what? Has a neshama, has a soul, has a physicality. What happens when he dies? The soul leaves the body. It's time for the body to deteriorate, to decompose. The person dies within that period of time. Same thing. Now it's ready for the spiritual representation to emerge. We began emerging 209 years into Egypt. That's when the Tzura Nevdelis, the spiritual profile, emerged from the physical. Now we're confronted. We come to the Red Sea, to the Yamsuf. Again, what is water? Water is totally physical. So we have an opposition. Now how do you contend with that opposition? We have to somehow go through the water. Ki inyan Echod l'mayim im Mitzrayim. There's a commonality between water and Egyptians. Egyptians, they're totally physical. They have a trace of spirituality, but the least of all nations. Water is totally physical. There's no spirituality to water. There's no soul. As the Egyptian people are the extreme distance from what we are, what the spiritual people are. Now water. What is the form of water? Anything in the physical, at least, it has a profile. Water has no profile. Whatever you do with water, you spread it over a wide area, it spreads. You put it in a narrow area, it actually, you heat it, it turns to vapor. You freeze it, it turns to ice. It doesn't have any specific form. So we're speaking about Klal Yisrael in terms of form, in terms of profile. It's the ultimate profile. The Egyptians are totally physical, but they have a profile. It's physical. Water is totally physical with the least degree of profile. So they are the antithesis. Water is the antithesis of what we are. So what do we have to contend with? We have to contend with some. We come to the Red Sea, to the Yam Suf. We are the ultimate in profile, spiritual, removed from physicality. And now we have to go through water, which we have no commonality, what's not in profile and not in essence, not in makeup. Now how do you somehow overcome that? Therefore, what is the opposing force against Klal Yisrael? Water. Water. Moshe Rabbeinu was the ultimate. What was his demise? What brought it about? Initially, he was put into the water. Right? That was as a result of what? Because they misread the stars, the astrologers. Then he struck the rock. So water brought about his death, his passing. How did we get the upper hand? How did we dominate the Egyptians? Through revealed miracles. That's the spiritual, the supernatural, superseding, dominating the physical. The supernatural dominates the natural. And why? Because we were worthy. At that point, the physical actually weakened. So now what emerges when the physical weakens? The spiritual. Therefore, the water also split before them. That's what? That's emerging from the physical. The physical no longer dominates. Now it's interesting. The Torah begins, beginning God created heaven and earth. Then it says, and what was the state of being? The world was tov vavohu, unformed, chaotic. Choshech al pnei tehom, darkness over the deep waters. The world was covered with water. Okay? Even though Hashem created it. When Hashem says, Yihi or, what is Yihi or? That's an expression of spirituality. Let there be light. It's like you're injecting into existence spirituality. Now, it's illuminating. The darkness is no longer there. Till now, it's dark. What is darkness? Darkness is void, vacuum. What is light? Light already is illumination. That dispels darkness. So we're speaking of force which pushes away what exists. It's dispelling. It's a dispelling force. Okay? What is a representation of physical in the ultimate sense? Darkness is the true representation of physical. What is it? It's a void. Physical which is a void of spirituality. That's what it is. Then Hashem says, let the water divide. Right? Then he says, let the water gather. And the dry land being seen. What is gathering of water? The word of Hashem caused the water. What's water? Water in terms of physical, it's the ultimate physical. It doesn't have form, and it's physically made up. The word of Hashem says, let the water gather. What's the word of Hashem? That's the ultimate and spiritual. And let the dry land be seen, which is the location for the human being to live, who is the representation of spiritual in this existence. So, what happens? The spiritual, when it's injected and infused into the physical, it actually impacts on it. The Chofetz Chaim writes in one location, says something interesting. A cow, a calf, a cow, a sheep, a goat. Unintelligible physical creature. It's just a mass of meat and bones with a hide, which has life in it. What happens if you consecrate it? You take something which is the most mundane and the most physical and the most earthy, and you turn it into an object of Kedusha through its consecration. Because it's being designated specifically for what? Its designation is what? Is for Hashem, is for God. So you see, you take something physical, and what? And just by designating it for Hashem, it turns the most mundane into something holy. You benefit from that, you're not permitted to benefit from it. There's liability. One has to bring a korban, a sacrifice for atonement, if you benefit from it, inadvertently. You have to pay its value. You have to pay a fifth on top of its value. All these are all ramifications of benefiting from something which is consecrated. So if a person, what about the essence of the Jew? What if the Jew takes a mitzvah, which conforms with all the criteria of what a mitzvah is, and you perform it, and you infuse in it the proper intent, and the proper subservience, what does it become? Definitely it becomes even more so, but it's only food. Each Oneg Shabbos, you're doing a mundane act, you're eating, you're satisfying your desire, but that's the mitzvah. V'samachta b'chagecho, rejoice in your holiday. Ein simchel b'osav v'yayim, meat and wine. Physical celebration, but because it's the context of celebrating the Yom Tov, you're taking that and you're elevating it to another level. It's a different dimension of being. It's not just the meat, the physical makeup of the meat. There's a conversion. It's converted to a different entity. It's interesting. There's a Rav Chaim Volozhin writes in the Ruach Chaim, that's his commentary on Pirkei Avos, that just as the mun, when they ate the mun, the manna, it absorbed in their inner organs, and there was no expelling, there was no waste. He says, when the Kohanim ate the sacrificial meat in the Beis HaMikdash, the meat was not expelled from their innards. It absorbed in inner organs. So he cites such a understanding. Why? What is a korban? Right? It's consecrated. And what level of consecration? It's the most advanced level of consecration. It's referred to Kedushas Mizbeach. It's the sanctity of the Mizbeach. It's korban Lashem. Something's Lashem. It's brought to a level. There's nothing. There's no waste. There's nothing. But it's physical. That physical is spiritual. Within the realm of spiritual, there's no waste. Therefore, there's nothing to expel. You eat that same animal unconsecrated, it's all waste. You extract a minute amount of nutrients, protein, whatever, the rest is waste. It's expelled from the body. It's unbelievable. You know, a person goes into a diamond mine. You mine a diamond. Looks like a rock. It's called a rough. To cut away, you have to cut away so much to get that diamond. But eventually you get the diamond. The whole effort, if it's a special diamond and it has a clarity, it has a special color, it's worth it. The effort and the cost, everything. Because ultimately, every activity that we were involved in, if you perform it with a mindset, with a specific objective, you take the most mundane and you turn it into something which is beyond the diamond. Literally, it's the same thing. I give you, I say, see this rough? You cut this and you invest enough time and effort, you're going to get something out of it a lot more special than the Hope Diamond. It's unbelievable. I'm willing to give it every effort because of the end result. I say, you see this animal? This sheep, you consecrate it as a Korban Pesach, as a Paschal lamb, you eat it in the temple, you know, I'm out of town, I just can't make it. You know, so what are you going to extract from that calf, from that sheep, from that goat? Something that's beyond the most precious diamond in existence. That all of a sudden you don't appreciate. We're talking about the korban was not expelled from their systems. There was no waste. In spiritual, there is no waste. As in spiritual, there's no time and space. There's no waste within the spiritual realm. So how many opportunities exist in a lifetime? Every moment, what we think, what we see, what we do, everything. Continuous, beyond hope diamonds. Beyond. Because you could convert any physical action into something which is holy. You turn it into a spiritual entity. And that's how you spiritualize the world. The whole world becomes spiritualized through that. It's a consecration of existence. Now, Hashem says, L'chvodi barosif, I've created this world for my glory. So what does that mean? Why is something which is consecrated for God, why is it holy? Because it's designated for God. So if God is the ultimate of holiness, detached from physicality, so if that is designated for Him, so the whole world, so that's holy. So if Hashem says, L'chvodi barosif, the world was meant to be consecrated, because that's God's glory. So if you live your life, that everything you consecrate for Him. You live your life for His glory. So what do you become? You become an object of holiness. It's no worse than the animal becoming consecrated. That's l'chvodi barosif. I've created everything for my glory. It sounds easy, it sounds simple. It's not simple, but it's reality. And the more you reflect and contemplate it, you understand how many opportunities, even if we'll take advantage 1% of what we don't, it's phenomenal. The gain is phenomenal. But what is the key? The key is you have to be cognizant and understand the value of the action that we do. And if you are aware of that, it's the infinite. It's a continuous process of the infinite. V'ascholoso shehu ygovim al Mitzrayim hoya b'yom rishon. When we left Egypt, it was the first day. When was Kriyas Yamsuf? On the seventh day. Right? Shvi Shel Pesach is what? That was Kriyas Yamsuf. The seventh day of Pesach was the splitting of the sea. Shekvar yodano ki achiluk sheyesh be'makush Mitzrayim Kriyas Yamsuf. What's the difference between the revealed miracles, the plagues of Egypt, and the splitting of the sea? What's the difference? They were both Nisim Gluyim. They both revealed miracles. Shekriyas Yamsuf sof hamakos. That was the end. Meaning, why did it take place on such a spectacular level? Because the physicality was worn down to such a point. Now the spirituality emerges at a special level. She'ein od yam ba'olam. Because, as we said, the end of the Makos, this is the end of the process. It's as if the ocean doesn't exist. L'kach nechshav hayam mitzius kloli. Kolshkim al dasra b'seinu zal shekol hamayim ba'olam nifku. You hear this? It's not only the sea split. Every water, you had water in a cup, in a vessel, the water split. It's a represent. What is water? Whatever water is representing, Kedusha comes into existence, it splits. It's only an indication of what? Of dominance. What is the dominant factor at this moment? The spiritual. Hu yesod echod min yesodos. The Egyptians are only part of the world. They're one of the 70 nations. Biyad shikol hayad klolis umitzrim hu etzba. When the Egyptian, what did the magicians in Egypt, the sorcerers say? Etzba lokimi. So etzba is one finger. Yamsuf was what? It was the Yad Hashem. So that's no calculation. 5 times whatever took place in Egypt. There were 10, so it's 50. Each makkah was 4, it's 200. Each makkah was 5, it's 250. Right? That's no calculation. How many makkahs took place on the sea? It's all dependent on what etzba means in Egypt. So etzba is what? It's one part of the hand. Yad is the whole hand. What is mayim? Mayim is klolis. It's a sea. I'm not talking about a small body of water. So the sea, the makkah that took place at the sea, is touching upon something which is all-encompassing. Egypt is one part of the 70 nations. It's the 70th of the world. The sea is a representation of totality. So when the physicality withers and wanes and dissipates, how does spirituality emerge? It becomes all-encompassing. So how does that manifest itself? That's yad. It's the yad Hashem. It's no longer etzbe Elokim. It's yad. It's the hand. It's the total hand. The hand is made up of a number of fingers. It's the all-encompassing. Ki olam nichla b'shiva keneged shivi mei bereishis. The world is synonymous with seven because all existence came about in 7 days of creation. V'chelek hu chelek echad min hashiva. We speak a part. If the whole is seven, so we speak a part of the whole is 1/7. Lekacho ikris yam b'yom shvi shen hametzius haproti hametzius shu nechshav metzius kloli. It started off. Day is a 7th, but ultimately where did it end? It ended, all 7 were completed. That's the sea. Ma'ayam hu mispar shiva was yotzel lecheris min achormi legamri. Therefore, what was the final blow? What was the last vestige of representation of physicality? With the sea splitting. And what happened after the sea split? The Egyptians were gone. Right? And we emerged as what? As a free people. That was the cherus. Right? Because then our masters no longer existed. Until the sea split, we did not achieve our complete spiritual profile. Why? Because the sea itself, it counters what we are, the representation. He says, as long as we had any level of association to the Egyptians, which they are the equivalent of physicality on the most profound, intense level, if the physicality has dominance or any degree of influence over the spiritual may function, but it's functioning on a deficient level. Of course, it's impinging on the spirituality. The redemption wasn't complete. They didn't fully extricate themselves from that. They were leaving the jurisdiction, the domain of physicality, which is water, which represents physicality on the most extreme level. And now, by the sea splitting, they're entering into a phase of what? Total spirituality. Without any interference of the physicality of the world. Now, just thinking, you find that what is the source of life? Water. Can't live without water. So water, in terms of physicality, we're saying it's the most extreme level of physicality in its makeup, and it has no form. Klal Yisrael are the antithesis of that. Form, the ultimate form, and what is that form? It's which transcends anything which is physical. But yet, everybody needs water. Right? Water is the source of life. Now, what does the water sustain? The physicality of the human being. What is the water which sustains the spirituality of the Jew? Torah is nimshul kamayim, right? Torah is equated to water. But what water? We're talking about it has the ultimate profile, and it's innate, is what is all spiritual. It's spiritual sustenance. Water sustains the physicality of the person. You cannot live without water. It's interesting. The water content in the body is the majority of the makeup of the body. You understand? It's very interesting. According to what the Moral is saying, we have limbs, everything we have form. But if you extract, the majority you extract is water. Now what is water? Water is the most extreme level of physicality. It has no form, and its essence is physical. So it's interesting. The human being, as a human being, has form. But what is the makeup of that form? Something which has no form. And that's the vast majority of the makeup of the human body. That's water. So that only tells you what is the essence of the body, of the human being. Physical. It's almost like it's like a facade. It's a facade of sophistication. But yet, what's its essence? Its essence is water. That's chomer. That's the material in the most profound representation of what material is. It's unbelievable. Just think of many things. You know, mayim represents taro. It's purity. Water is purity. The Gemara says, the Mishnah says that a person is tova be'ini adag. Let's say you take fish, or you take fish oil, and you tovel in it. It's considered a tefillah, because the fish it comes from the water, so the fish is equivalent of water. Okay. So what does that bring about tara? I mean, water is the ultimate in physicality. The ultimate in physicality. No profile, totally physical. Yet, if you have spiritual contamination, you immerse yourself in that water, and you come out, you're relieved of the contamination. Why? But that's all physical. How does the physical relieve something which is spiritual impurity? But it doesn't. Seems to be contradictory to what we're saying. You go into a spiritual setting, which the impurity is spiritual. Okay, so the spiritual purity somehow counters it and relieves you of that. Releases you of that. But how does it, over here, how does it do it? So I once had said, the Maral only makes it more difficult to understand, but it's the same answer. If a person immerses himself in water, a sufficient amount of water, it meets all the criteria what a mikveh is, or you go into an ocean, a natural body of water, which is equivalent of a well. Okay? You immerse yourself. Let's say when you immerse yourself, one hair sticks out of the water. Everything is submerged except one hair of the person's head. It's not valid. You have to be fully submerged. Now, what is full submersion? Immersion in the mikveh. A human being cannot exist in water. Going below the surface, that means you've actually negated your existence. You no longer exist. You've gone into a non-existent state. Submerging self-water is non-existent. The Torah says that if you have an earthenware vessel which becomes contaminated, it cannot be purified. How do you purify it? You smash it. It says yishaver. Why? Because when it's broken, it's no longer a vessel. The vessel retains the contamination, but if it's no longer a vessel, it doesn't retain it. So therefore, let's say you take a contaminated vessel, earthenware vessel, you put it in a mikveh. Now, what is a human being? A human being is a kli cheres. We're contaminated. So what is the cause of the contamination? It's our physicality, right? But we're more than just an earthenware vessel. We're a human being, correct? We have a spirituality. A human being underwater, see, an earthenware vessel underwater is the same earthenware vessel above water. Therefore, putting the vessel in the water doesn't negate its existence. It's still an earthenware vessel. It's not broken. But a human being who's underwater, that's non-existent. You can't live there. So as a human being, what are you? It relieves you of your contamination. Because what's the basis for the contamination? The vessel. As a human being who's this vessel, I'm no longer a vessel. Of course, you can't live down there. You can't exist submerged. Therefore, you're relieved. What happens if your person then dies? You have a corpse. You could put that body in that water from now forever. That body generates contamination. Because once the neshama leaves, it's like that earthenware vessel that's below the water. It's the same thing. It's the same body above the water, it's submerged in the water. But as a living being, when you're submerged, you're no longer a human being. So therefore you negate it. Once you negate it, you're relieved of the contamination. So the main key factor is the negation. It's the negation of the physical. Except by an earthenware vessel, what's its negation? You have to smash it. By a human being, it's being put in a position where you're non-existent. That's the negation of the human being. Okay? V'chol zman she'yutachas reshus hamayim hachomrim mon matzura. As long as we were under the domination and under the jurisdiction of the physical water, it interfered with our spiritual profile. It couldn't come in full form. They didn't have, their essence was not completely developed. Why Jews called Ivrim? Because we passed through the sea. Ivrim connotes we're a spiritual people. Because we passed through the sea, then we were able to come to a full form of spirituality. Why it's because, how did we assume our profile? By going through the sea. That's the essence of their dimension. They left the water which interferes, which prevents that spiritual profile from coming about. They acquired, they achieved Hashem K'moshes Bayer. It's interesting. We finally passed through the Yam Suf. We become Ivrim. We fully developed in our spiritual profile. 3 days later, what do we come? We come to an oasis where the water is bitter. Again, it's water. It's bitter water. It's not potable. You can't drink it. They began complaining, and there's a claim against them. And again, we pass that. We arrive in Refidim. Again, a problem with the water. Continuous water. I mean, here we've already achieved our level, our spirit. There you say it was prevented. So until we were extricated, it couldn't happen. But we're already Ivrim. So if Ivrim, why are we contending with the water still? We're still contending water. The bitter water, Moshe had to strike the rock. They started to complain. But we've already advanced ourselves. Now, why was there a problem? What happened at Refidim? Right? We were attacked by a Molech afterwards. Because then we started to complain. After Hashem gave us the water, we complained. We wanted bread. We wanted food. Okay? Vayav Molech. What happened over there? It says, Rofu Yedem in our Torah. Now, in Morah, what did Hashem give us in Morah? He gave us 3 mitzvahs. He gave us dinim, the laws, mishpat. He gave us poraduma, the red heifer, and he gave us kibbur aveim, and also Shabbos. Shabbos also. This is pre-Sinai. Why did he give us? Sham sam lo chok u'mishpat. That's the pasuk. There he established chok u'mishpat, the statute and the law. Why there? We already, as I'm asking, we're already Ivrim. We already passed. We fully developed. We excreted ourselves from the water. So if we're there, we've arrived. This is a good question. So why are we complaining at the bitter oasis? Hashem says, take a tree, throw it in, it'll sweeten the water. After that, Sham lo choka mishpat. These mitzvahs. Shabbos, kibbur aveim, paradum and dinim. And so what do you see? That even if you achieve that full spiritual profile, it has to be maintained. Now, how do you maintain it? The only way you can maintain that spiritual profile and not to succumb to your physicality, you have to infuse it with mitzvahs. We had no mitzvahs. Whatever mitzvahs we had then, we had it as b'nei Noach. They weren't sufficient. You needed another dimension of mitzvah to maintain that special profile. Because the Shem Mitzvah B'nei Noach, every goy has that. Even though we had circumcision. Okay? According to the Rambam, even the B'nai Keturah, the Arabs have Milah. So it's not something which is necessarily unique to the Jew, even though it's a different dimension. So if so, we need something to really spiritualize us. So the spiritual profile is not enough. Let's see, could you imagine a person, absolute pure tzaddik, then he decides he's not doing mitzvahs any longer. What happens? Immediately he withers. As holy as was a moment ago, that holiness is gone, because it has to be maintained. We left the sea, we're Ivrim. We've achieved Surah Shlema of spirituality. We transcended physicality in a complete form. Now what? But how do you keep it up? You have that's Sham L'Chol Mishpat. He gave us these laws to maintain that. Yet we traveled further. We started complaining we didn't have water. Hashem says to Moshe, take the staff, split the rock. He split the rock. There was enough there was enough water to feed, to water. You provide millions of people and all the herds and the flocks. Okay, that's what happened. But why? Hashem already gave us mitzvahs to maintain our spirituality. Why did they complain? We've already achieved Surah Nivdelis, this complete, transcendental spiritual profile. So why do we complain again? Right? No, because factually that's the whole context of Bechira. We still have a physicality we have to contend with. Because if that is always the overriding factor, the all-consuming factor, you have no free choice. There's always free choice. But how does the choice manifest itself? It's always contended with something which is totally physical. We need water. Now, it's interesting. What is bread? Bread has a profile. But bread is the staple of life. As much as bread is the staple of life, on bread alone man does not live. It's based on God's word. So I'm saying, what was the first, after Kriyas Yamsuf, the first two challenges? Mora, we don't have water. A lack of water. What was the next challenge? We don't have what to eat. What's going to be? Right? So Hashem gave the man. That's what Hashem gave. Now what is the man? The man is physical but totally spiritual. So it's interesting. The man, what is physicality? Physicality in terms of its innateness is physical. What is man? In its innateness, it's spiritual. What is Klal Yisrael? In their innateness, they're spiritual. It's only the equivalent of a facade in terms of what we look like. We look like any other nation, basically. But in terms of who are we? We're a different dimension of existence. We're not part of this existence, relatively speaking. The man exactly is a mirror image of what we are. That's what the man is. Exactly. It's a physical wafer. Any conceivable taste or value, it takes on. How does this happen? It's a miracle. The answer is spiritual. But how could that wafer take on multiple levels of value? Endless, except for specific things which are considered detrimental. Onions, whatever it is. Gourds, garlic, because it's detrimental to a nursing mother. So therefore it can't take on that value. But outside of that, anything else. Because if it's spiritual, it's unlimited. It has unlimited value. It's interesting. We have mitzvahs. Tefillin. It has to be square, it has to be made of leather, it has to be black, it has to be so many compartments. But what is tefillin? Is it the leather? It's only a representation. What's its essence? Its essence is spiritual. Except it has to have a presence. Its presence is physical. But its innateness and its value is totally spiritual. This is a representation of things which are another realm of existence. And what is the Jew? Same thing. What are mitzvahs? What is the mun? Exactly that. No, lahavdil. You have an honest man, and you have a man who's corrupted and depraved, and you dress them alike. Could you tell the difference? And one is a sociopath. You know, but if you dress him, you see the epitome of innocence and purity in both of them. Understand? Because they're both human beings, but the essence of one the other. This is worse than the worst predator animal. Lahavdil elef avdolos. That's the Jew and any non-Jew. Identically. Not saying in terms, but in terms of spirituality. But we look alike. We speak the same language. Our intellectual system is the same. Our circulatory systems, our neurological, all the systems are the same. And these two people, it's not the same, it's also the same. Well, you think differently, but that doesn't make the difference. It's the essence of what you are. And that's why, chas v'sholom, if a Jew marries out, in the words of Ramchal, it's a different species. As a Jew to a non-Jew, it's a different species. What do you mean? We're all human. We're all ethical and moral. It's a different species. One is a physical being. We're not physical beings. That's not our essence. So chas v'sholom, crossing that line, it's like it's crossbreeding. It's even worse than crossbreeding. It's the ultimate desecration and defilement of what's ultimately the holiest. That's what it is. We'll just start the next chapter for a few minutes. V'zeh perek novi raya brura. He says in the future, this upcoming chapter, he will bring an irrefutable proof, and everything we said will be established and justified. This whole idea, what he said before, that the Klaus says is Tzura Nevdelis, he says it's been founded and been confirmed irrefutably. That's our essence. Perkam the Chulin in a Kodesh Baruch Hu maybe takola al yedei behemton shel tzadikim. Hashem will not allow any tragedy or any mishap to come about even through to the animal of the tzaddik. What's the story? The Reb Pinchas ben Yohavi ozel lepidin shvuyim. Yeah, Reb Pinchas Yohavi who's going on a mitzvah mission, ransoming captives. Poga Bay Nara Ganoi Naro came to a river. It was called the river Ganoi. That was the name of it. Omale Ganoi, you know, Reb Pinchas was a tzaddik, not to believe what kind of tzaddik he was. He didn't push around many people. You know, today the word is bullying. He didn't bully people. Chas v'sholom. Pinchas ben Yoyer, father of Rabbi Akiva. So he says to Reb Shimon Yochai, he was Reb Shimon Yochai's father-in-law. He says to the river, Ganoi chalokli meimech. Split your waters on my behalf. That's what Pinchas ben Yoyer said to the river. Ve'evrapoch, I want to pass through. Omalei, ato holech lasos ritzon konech, v'ani holech lasos ritzon koni. You're going to do the will of what? You're on the mission of your maker. I'm functioning to do the will of my maker. My maker says, when I flow horizontally. Splitting is an abnormality. That means I'm going against what my maker has dictated to me, has commanded me. Ato sofik oseh, iatoseh. It's not clear you're going to succeed in your mitzvah mission. I am definitely succeeding. I'm doing exactly what God said. Vani vadi oseh. Omaleg. So, Reb Pinchas ben Yoyer says to the river, Im iato cholek, if you don't split, goes rani olecho shlo yava boch mayim leolam. I will decree water should never ever flow in this location again. Meaning, you're out of business. If you don't split, cholak lake, yeah, sit split. and it was no just ordinary threat. He was going to carry through. Have a bad day. Chad Gavra the Dori Chiti Lepischa. He had an attendant who was with him, who was carrying wheat that was cut for Pesach for matzah. It's the Gemara I mentioned once. Omar lei plog nami lahai Gavra. He says, I want you to split, even though he's an ordinary person, split for him also. The mitzvah osik, because he's engaged in doing a mitzvah. He's carrying the wheat for the matzah. Polaglei, also split. Hava hu sayo tayo the lovavadei. There was an Arab. In addition, there was an Arab with them also, who was accompanying them. Omar le chalok nami lahai. You hear this? You must split even for him. Why? Listen to this. What's his value? The lo lemo kach osed lebnei levoya chalakli. It's a chil Hashem. This is the thank you. Here, the Arab is accompanying us. He's the security accompaniment, right? You leave him behind. After all that he's done, the kindness, now you leave him behind. You leave him stranded. How does it reflect? Therefore, it has value. You have to split for him also. Chalakli. Om Rav Yosef. Kamen nofi shai gavra mi Moshe. V'shitin rivon. He says, Pinchas ben Yair, what he achieved is more than Moshe Rabbeinu achieved. I mean, he's speaking strong words here. Split or else. He splits, goes back, split again, and split 3 times. So what he accomplished is more than Moshe and Shishim Reba. He had split once, they went across. There the sea had split only once. Here the sea has split 3 times. It's lahavdil, it's just on a facetious level. Person comes, rings the doorbell. You're already in bed. Get out. What do you want? Collecting for charity. Ring the doorbell. Oh, I forgot I have another cause I'm collecting for. Get back. Again. You know something? Why don't you ask me the first time? Right? 3 times. It's even more than Moshe Rabbeinu. We'll stop here.